when he responds, "Oh, but I do have a beautiful little, what did you call it, tart, stuck to my arm." I join in his laughter. "Elizabeth." "Elizabeth?" "My name, it's Elizabeth, and I assure you I'm no tart." Chapter 11. Lachlan and I are all smiles when he leads me into the magnificent ballroom, draped in luxury. The room is masculine, smelling of rich varnish and weathered books, dark mahogany walls, and the finest champagne being served off of polished antique silver trays. As a waiter passes me, I pluck a sparkling flute from her tray. "Quick on the bevy. Eager?" Lachlan teases, and I answer with a simple, "Parched," before taking a sip. But I am eager, too eager, as I dart my eyes around the room in search of Declan, but all I see are unfamiliar faces. "Elizabeth," Lachlan starts, pulling my attention back to him. "What brings you here? I attend many of these events, and I've never seen you before." "I'm from the U.S. I recently arrived here, but have been staying in Galashiels." "Gala? Interesting. It's such a small town. Most travelers stay in Edinburgh. What's in Gala for you?" "A good friend of mine," I tell him. "He's supposed to be here tonight, actually. Declan McKinnon, have you seen him?" "That wee bastard!" he belts out. He must see my confused expression when he explains. "Scottish humour, dear. It's a friendly boast." "Oh." I take a sip of my champagne while he adds, "He attended university with my younger brother." "Did you also go here?" "I did," he says, and then is cut off by a gentleman at the microphone announcing that dinner will be served shortly and to enjoy the band and some dancing. I scan the room again, which is filled with a mass of people, chatting, drinking, and mingling. Voices are quiet, aside from the random boisterous comments from the men. Rich with their accents, I must stand out to them as Lachlan introduces me to a few people while everyone makes their way around. My attention is half-hearted as the time passes. Lachlan accompanies me through the dinner service, and while he's visiting with a few other people seated at our table, I finally spot Declan. He's in the back of the room, at the bar, with a woman on his arm as he converses with a couple men. I stare. I can't take my eyes off of him as he stands there in a kilt. Good God, he's perfection. I'm used to seeing him in a dressed-down tuxedo at black tie events, but there is nothing dressed down about him right now. Proper in a black jacket, red and black kilt with a matching red and black tartan fly-plaid that's slung over his shoulder, and a black leather sporran that hangs low from his hips. Down to his flashes, this man is obscenely beautiful, and I want to rip that wench right off his arm. I notice he isn't paying much attention to the woman as he drinks from his old-fashioned and continues to talk to the men. I want to jump up and go to him, eager to be in his presence, but I know the reaction I'll get. It's the one I fear but expect, the one I hate but deserve. "Something got your eye?" Lachlan says. I turn and smile, telling him, "I found my friend." "Ah," he sighs as he spots Declan at the bar. But before I can make a move, a man steps to the podium on the stage and begins talking, starting off with gratitude for the attendance this evening. I watch as Declan makes his way over to the stage, while the gentleman continues to address all the attendees. He's so close, but he's further away than he's ever been, even before we ever met, because his hatred cleaves wounds deeply, and my betrayal spears even deeper. Declan's name is announced as the quintessential donor to the foundation. His name is praised for his time and devotion to the charity, and the round of applause is loud as the podium is handed over to him and he steps behind it. There's no arguing his humility. I see it in his expression. He feels the attention is undeserved. He thanks the audience, and I melt into the sound of his voice. His accent, lighter than most others in this room, seduces me as I sit here. I feel exposed, as if people can see how my body is responding to his voice. My stomach trills and my heart quickens in luring excitement. I miss that voice, miss it whispering softly in my ear, barking his possessive words to me, claiming that I'm his property, growling when he would come. Every sound of his enraptured me the way it's doing right now. Giving his speech about the importance of proper education for all children, regardless of social and economic stature, I continue to admire the great things he is doing to his outfit. I take in every piece of the man I have been mourning for the past couple months. I can finally look at him without him spitting his enmity at me. So for now, I worship this moment in time where I see my old, confident Declan speaking gracefully, loving his smile when he chuckles at his small banter. When his speech comes to an end and he presents his substantial donation to the Foundation president and encourages everyone to take out their checkbooks to do the same, he's showered with admiration for his time and efforts with grand applause, which he humbly accepts. Stepping down from the podium, he shakes hands with the many committee members, and with all eyes on him, I know this is my moment. As conniving as it is, it's the only way I can get his attention without him lashing out. "Excuse me," I say softly to Lachlan as I stand and set my napkin on my seat. Keeping my eyes on Declan, I make my way through the people who are now leaving the tables behind to socialize and dance. As I approach, the woman I saw him with earlier is back at his side. She's tall, much taller than my petite stature, with raven hair that's pulled in a sophisticated bun at the nape of her neck. I quickly remind myself of what Declan and I shared not too long ago, and right my posture as I step next to the both of them. When the man in front of me shakes Declan's hand and steps away, green eyes widen in surprise. "Declan, it's so good to see you again," I croon excitedly, putting on my act in front of the small group that's gathered around him. He falls in line with me, the way I knew he would, being surrounded by all these people. He chivalrously accepts my hand and a kiss to his cheek. "What are you doing here?" he questions, with only a mild bite to his tone, but his face is cordial. "Now, you know charities are dear to me," I tease in mockery with a giggle. "I'd like to make my time in Scotland meaningful." "And how long is that? Don't you have to get back to the States soon?" Leaning in closer to him so not everyone can hear, I say, "No. At the moment, time is a little futile, if you know what I mean." I then turn to his date, remarking to him while my eyes are fixed on the woman, "Declan, she's stunning." My words, and the manner in which they are delivered, make her uncomfortable. She fidgets and responds, "I'm sorry, I don't believe we've met. I'm Davina." "It's a pleasure." "And you are?" "An old acquaintance," Declan interrupts, answering for me, and I giggle, adding, "Well, that's putting it modestly." I can see the tension when he bites his jaw down, so I quickly make my request publicly. "I was hoping I could steal you away for a couple minutes. There's something I'd like to talk to you about, privately." "This probably isn't the best time." "It's okay," Davina tells him with a pleasant smile. "I need to go visit with Beatrice anyway." Smiling up at Declan, I boast, "Perfect." His smile is tight as he walks past me with no eye contact. "Follow me." I do, keeping up with his quick stride, but when I see he's making his way outside and away from all these people, I grab onto his arm and tug back. "Here is fine." "I thought you said you wanted privacy." "This is private enough. I need the crowd to ensure he keeps his emotions in check." He narrows his eyes and sneers angrily under his breath. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I needed to see you, to talk to you, and this was the only way I could get you to listen without you losing your shit on me." Keeping his voice low, his tone is harsh when he says, "What do you want to say to me, huh? I'm sorry? It's not what you think? Forgive me? Well, fuck you, because there isn't anything I want to hear coming out of your mouth." "If you'll just let me say my piece, I'll go. If that's what you want, I'll leave, disappear from your life, and you'll never have to think of me again." Declan grabs my elbow and pulls me closer to him. His face is so close to mine, I can feel the heat of his blood pulsing through his veins. "You think it's that easy? You think I can just shut you out and never think about you again?"
The woman who deceived me to the point that I—"
He pauses for a second to make sure no one is close enough to hear his next words.
"Took a man's life. I'll never be able to get rid of you because you're now the demon that lives inside me."
Words slaughter deeply. The urge to drop to my knees and beg at his feet to forgive me surges through my body. I did this to him. It was me, and the weight of that responsibility is making it near impossible to stay above ground. It's sinking me down to a hell I'm terrified to face. "Tell me what I can do," I plead, "because I'd do anything for you, to take any piece of this away from you."
"It's done with. It happened and nothing will take that away. But you continuing to pop up, you're just twisting the knife you've put in my back."
"Let me attempt to take it out, then." "That was a lovely speech," an older lady compliments as she walks past us. Declan quickly thanks her and then turns back to me.
"You need to leave."
"No."
"God, you're stubborn."
"Declan, no. I want to explain."
"Not here."
"Then where?"
"Tomorrow,"
he suggests.
"You want to talk privately? Fine, I'll give you that. Come to my house. Say whatever it is you need to say, and then leave."
"Okay," I respond with a nod.
"I mean it. You leave Scotland. Go back home."
I continue to nod in agreement with his words and confirm, "Tomorrow, then?" His jaw clenches.
"Yes, and now I want you to excuse yourself from this party."
And I do. Getting what I wanted, I smile, but it doesn't feel entirely victorious for obvious reasons. Retrieving my pashmina and clutch, I say my goodbye to Lachlan and thank him for accompanying me as my escort. He offers to drive me back to the hotel, but I politely decline and accept his flirtatious kiss to my hand before he opens the car door for me.
"It was a pleasure, Elizabeth. I hope to see you around,"
he tells me, and I return the gesture, saying, "I hope so too." Chapter 12. Declan.
"What were you doing with that woman?" I ask when Lachlan approaches me at the bar. "How do you know her?"
"I don't. She was alone and I offered to escort her. Why?"
Taking a hard shot of my scotch, I bite against the burn. "I want you to follow her."
"Who is she?"
"Just follow her. I want to know what she's spending her days doing."
His chuckle agitates me as he responds,
"So now I'm a P.I., McKinnon." "You want to work for someone else?" I snap, setting my old-fashioned down on the bar with too much farce, and repeat harshly, "Follow her."
Chapter 13. I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard, so I go for simplicity, wearing a modest cashmere sweater, slacks, and a pair of flats. I keep my makeup light with a touch of sheer gloss on my lips. My hand nervously shakes as I dab on a little concealer under my eyes to cover the evidence of my lack of sleep last night. When I left the party, I checked out of the hotel, so it was late when I arrived back here at Isla's after the 2-hour drive. My mind was racing all night, anxious about seeing Declan today and wondering exactly what I'm going to say. A part of me questions what it is I'm even doing here in Scotland. Confusion is my state of mind, so I don't even attempt to reason my actions because it's a doomed feat. All I do know is that I'm lost, and Declan is the only thing that's familiar and known. Slipping on my knee-length ivory peacoat, I make my way down to my car. I find myself speeding to get to Declan, but I'm worried about what will greet me when I arrive. With white knuckles, I take a few slow, deep breaths as I round the bend in the road and approach the gate. For the first time, I roll up to the intercom box and press the button. There's no answer, but the gates open anyway. The car moves slowly up the winding road that weaves through tall, snow-covered trees. When I reach the top, I pull in front of what was once promised to be my safe haven of escape. This should have been my home with Declan. Instead, he's my lost love, and I, his enemy. Gravel crunches beneath my feet when I step out of the car. I stand, looking up at the 3-story estate that's secluded up here. Majestic and alone at the top of this hill, the only sound is the wind that howls between the trees and the swirling of snow that blows from the bare branches. I look over to the grand fountain and imagine the sound of its trickling water in the summertime.
What are you doing?
I turn to the house and see Declan standing at the front door in a pair of tailored slacks and an untucked button-down. My heart's beat immediately responds to him, and I murmur, "Nothing, just looking at the grounds," while I walk over to him. He looks down at me as I walk up the steps leading to the front door, and when I get a whiff of his cologne, I want so badly to jump into his arms, to make this all disappear, to go back in time so I can do it all differently, to save him from the cliff of goodness I shoved him off of. But he doesn't say a word as he gestures with his hand to enter his home. It takes nearly all my strength to stay on my feet when I step inside the massive entryway. Looking up and around, everything has been remodeled in an elegant, contemporary flair of whites and ivories. The foyer spans the length of the house, and you can see straight to the back where it opens up to the large glassed atrium. Everything is bright and peaceful, except for the man who walks past me. I follow, as cold darkness leads me into an elaborate sitting room, which has yet to be remodeled. The walls are lined in aged wooden bookshelves that hold hundreds and hundreds of books. So many you can smell the pages and leathered bindings. An antique chandelier hangs over the large seating area of leather wingback chairs and a tufted Chesterfield sofa that's identical to the one he had in the office of his loft back in River North. Declan takes a seat in the center of the couch, offering no welcome when he speaks.
Say what you need to say.
And suddenly, everything I thought about saying last night is gone. I have no words as I look at him. I walk closer, and instead of sitting on the couch with him or on one of the chairs, I sit on the wooden coffee table right in front of him, and when I do, he leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. We don't speak for a while. We just look into each other's eyes, mine filled with pain and sorrow, his filled with chilling anger. Threatening tears prick and burn, but I fight to remain strong when truthfully I'm a shattered little girl, yearning to cling to the solace that's right in front of me and never let go. With a shallow breath, my eyes fall shut, pushing a couple tears down my cheek, and I whimper, "I'm so sorry." I can't bear to look at him in my insurmountable guilt for what I've done. My head drops to my hands as I will for strength, but it doesn't come. That's the thing with Declan. He's always had a way of making it difficult for me to lock up the truth of my emotions. He's the one person who was able to strip down my barricade and make me feel, truly feel. When I finally open my eyes, he hasn't shifted. His hard face remains, unaffected by my tears. "Say something," I whisper. "Please." Creases form along his forehead, and his eyes look to ache when he finally does speak, asking,
"Why did you do it?"
I vow to myself to stop all the lies, to give him transparent truth about everything. If that makes me a savage in his eyes, which it undoubtedly will, then fine, because if he's going to judge me, I at least want him to do it honestly. "Revenge," I finally admit.
"I want the truth,"
he demands. "I married Bennett with intentions of destroying him," I say, and then pause before adding, "I married him to kill him." He releases a heavy puff of air in disbelief.
"What the fuck is wrong with you?"
I don't know.
"Why?"
"What I told you was a lie. The story about me growing up in Kansas and my parents' death, it was all a lie." The guilt has festered long enough, and I crack. My words bleed from the cobwebs of my soul, and I cry as the wounds shred apart. "I don't know how to make it right, but I want to. I never thought I would fall in love with you the way I did." My words spill out through my constricted throat.
"Tell me why,"
he snarls.
"What did he do to you that you'd want him dead?"
"He murdered me. I wanted payback." Declan's jaw grinds, and I go on, explaining. I was happy. When I was a little girl, I was happy. I lived with my father, and then one day... I choke on the agony of my words. One day he was taken from me, arrested. I was only 5 years old when it happened. It was all Bennett's fault. My dad was sent to prison, and I was sent to hell. I stop when I can't speak anymore and simply cry, choking in broken gasps of air while Declan just sits here, a stone of a man with eyes of disbelief, confusion, anger. It hurts to look at him, but I do it anyway. I never saw my father again, and when I was 12 years old, he died in prison, killed by another inmate.
What did Bennett have to do with this?
He interrupts. Because it's a long story, I exhaust.
You owe me the truth.
He thought I was being abused by my dad, but it wasn't the truth. He told his parents, and the authorities were called to investigate, but instead they uncovered that he was trafficking guns and arrested him. I know it sounds bad, but he was a good man and I had a good life with him. My cries erupt harder, blubbering. He wasn't bad. He was perfect and loved me, and Bennett took it all away. In a single moment he set fire and incinerated everything in my life. That asshole stole my life. Shaking his head, Declan mutters,
Doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense.
It was his fault, I press, but his response is sharp when he moves on.
I don't want to argue your fucked up rationalizations. Tell me, what was I?
Declan, please.
Tell me. Tell me what I was.
His voice booms off the walls, demanding to know. In the beginning you were the pawn, I confess.
More,
he urges. Declan, you have to understand that it changed and...
More.
Okay, I blurt out, and then repeat in a softer, defeated tone. Okay. Yes, you started as the pawn. I was going to use you to kill Bennett.
Why not you?
Because I was afraid of getting caught if I got my hands too dirty. His teeth grind as he begins to clench and unclench his fists. I'm sorry, I breathe. But when I got to know you, and we connected so easily, I fell for you. You make me feel something that no one else has ever been able to do. No one has ever looked at me the way you do. The way you did. I've had a hard life, but...
Don't you dare do that. Don't you excuse your fucked ways because of the life you've had.
I need you to know that what we had, the feelings that I had for you, were genuine. I truly loved you. I still do. I was trying to find a way out of the scam. I was giving it all up so we could be together. Pinching the bridge of his nose, he takes a moment before speaking.
I need to know something.
Anything. I'll tell you anything to make this right.
Was it true? Bennett beating the shit out of you. Was that true?
His voice strains on those words, and I hate the witch I am and having to admit, no, Bennett never hurt me.
You fucking bitch!
He scathes through a severed cry. I see how deeply I've hurt him. It's all over his face, and it cuts through his voice. He rests his head on his tightly fisted hands, shaking in horror. Tell me what to do. Tell me, I beg, needing to take his anguish away, needing to make this whole situation just disappear.
You can't do shit, Nina.
And the instant he says my name, he winces, squeezing his eyes shut and then asking,
What the hell do I even call you?
A muted stillness lengthens between us as we look into each other's eyes, completely demolished. Seconds that feel like hours pass. And for the first time, although he already knows it from the file, I give him my name. Elizabeth Rose Archer. Chapter 14. Declan. Elizabeth Rose Archer, she tells me on soft words after a long span of silence. How could Satan own such a beautiful name? I keep my hands fisted tightly so she can't see them shaking,
but the roiling fury that runs thick through my blood has me on the verge of detonation. It's all I can do to hold myself together right now. This woman, the one I loved not so long ago, is like gasoline dripping on my burning heart. Her name was already known to me. I read it in the file I found on her husband's desk after I shot and killed him. Seeing her pictures spread across his desk, covered in a spray of his blood, destroyed all my trust in the world. It was only a couple hours later, after getting home and digging into that file, when I soon realized I'd been scammed. Scammed by the only person who had ever been able to seep into my heart so entirely. I've never loved the way I loved her, and to know it was all a lie, the deceit of being played, was more than I could take. I know I murdered an innocent man, and now, hearing her crazy explanation has my mind so fucked up. How could I have been in love with someone as psychotic as her? What the fuck is wrong with me?
Declan, please, say something, anything, her tiny voice requests.
My body is a mass of tense muscles I refuse to relax for fear of what I'll do. So I keep myself locked and stern when I speak. So he never hurt you?
No.
Never mean to you?
No, Bennett loved me. He didn't know who I was.
How'd you get the bruises then? I ask, remembering how god-awful she would look, covered in horrifically grotesque bruises. Sometimes her skin would split from the swelling and bleed. The battered blood that pooled beneath her skin surface always stained her body. It fucked me up. Rage and fury for a man I believed was inflicting the abuse, lamenting heartache for the woman I loved, and guilt from not being able to protect her. The emasculating possession she put me in, knowing damn well she had me fooled. And now I sit here feeling like a pussy that got manipulated by nothing more than a runaway straight kid.
My brother.
Brother?
He was in on it too. I would go to him to get the bruises.
It was your brother who beat the shit out of you? On purpose to fool me? She nods her head shamefully in response. Jesus Christ, you're sick. I watch while tears drip from her chin and wish they were the acid she filled my heart with so connivingly.
I know, but...
Just stop, I bark. I can't take any more of this shit, but she doesn't stop. Her words come out in a rush of panic.
When I told you I loved you, when I gave you those words, I meant them. I didn't want to use you, not at that point. I wanted out and to keep you from doing what I initially wanted you to do.
But you didn't, did you?
Everything spun out of control so fast.
Were you happy? When you found out Bennett was dead, were you happy?
It destroyed me to know I pushed you so far, she counters.
Answer my fucking question, I belt out, standing up and staring my eyes into hers as I looked down on her. Did it make you happy? Her body trembles when she closes her eyes and admits,
yes.
So you got what you wanted?
No.
No? She tilts her head back to look up at me, and my bones beg to impale her, to beat the living shit out of her, a punishment she'll never forget, one that would mutilate her for life.
No, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't worth sacrificing you because saving you was all I wanted to do at that point.
I sneered at her ludicrous words. You wanted to save me so much that you left me in a pool of blood to die? Her eyes radiate horror. That's right, darling. I was conscious. I felt you, your touch, your kiss, but all it took was for that guy who shot me to say go for you to leave me to die. Was that your idea of saving me?
No, Declan,
she says through her tears that never stop.
I was scared. It all happened so fast. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you were dead.
Her words spit venom, and I can't look at her face anymore without hammering my fist into it. You fucking left me there to die, you bitch! I roar, grabbing her arms with force and yanking her up, shaking her as I fume. Your words are lies. Nothing you say makes any goddamn sense. Rage takes over and I lose it, slinging her body around and throwing her to the floor. She crumbles, falling hard to the ground. I step over, grab the bitch by the sweater, and yank her back off the ground as I hunch in her face. She doesn't protest my afflictions. She takes them willingly, the same way she has the past few times I've been rough with her, and I take advantage of her submission. Her hands clamp around my wrists as I rip her off the floor and shove her away from me. "Get the fuck out!"
"Please!"
Her voice pierces my ears so harshly I can feel the razor of it in my gut. The pain rings sharply in my head, and I boil over in red-hot revolt, clenching her frail neck in my hand, choking her. My body burns in a pyre of grief and fury as she clings to my arm, and her touch spurs me to plunge my fingers deeper into her flesh, clamping the trachea that lies beneath, cutting off her air supply. A hoarse gargle is the only sound she makes as her tear-filled eyes lock to mine. They shine bright from crying, and my tendons yearn to squeeze even tighter. There's so much colliding inside of me, I can feel it in my teeth, so I grit them to keep myself from biting and ripping the skin off her. I want to kill her. I want to punish her in the worst way possible, but when my arm begins to violently shake, her mouth and eyes instantly pop open wider, and I realize my hold. I can't kill her. She falls to my feet, gasping and coughing wretchedly as I rake my hands through my hair. What the hell is happening to me? The touch of her hands around my ankles gets my attention. Looking down on her, she's resting her cheek on top of one of my loafers. My breathing is heavy as emotions swarm, and it's in the moment she looks up at me, broken at my feet, that I give my final word. Leave. I kick her hands off my legs and walk out of the room, leaving her to show herself out, because if I have to look at her for one more second, I won't be able to forgive myself for what I might do. This woman has ruined me. I'm a fucking monster. Obliterated beyond my own recognition. And it was all for naught.
Chapter 15. Makeup covers my marred neck as I give myself a once-over before heading out. My body is wounded in delicious bruises and scabs from the man my heart still yearns for. When I look at them, it's like he's still with me, his lingering touch I fiend for on my body. It took me a while to collect myself and leave his home the other day. Hopelessness consumed every inch of existence. It still does. I was weak, curled at his feet, sobbing on his perfectly polished shoes when he kicked me away and left me lying on the ground. My words did nothing but enrage him to the point he lost control. Declan never loses control. He thrives on it, needs it to function. But I could see the chaos swimming in his eyes as they bore down on me while he strangled me. I didn't panic because I'd gladly take a death upon the hands of true love. My ticket is booked to fly back to Chicago. I don't want to go, but I also don't want to continue hurting Declan. He's not the same man anymore because of me. His warmth has wasted away. No spark, no light, no love. Nothing waits for me back in Chicago, aside from a penthouse of hidden skeletons. I have no home. There's no one waiting for me anywhere. I figure I'll slip into town, pack up my belongings, and leave the state. No longer can I live there because I'm no longer Nina. It doesn't matter where I go, though, and that thought is utterly depleting. So I decide to attempt to escape my pitiful reality and drive into Edinburgh for the day to meander around. I drive in silence, taking in the landscape, and before I know it, I'm in the city. After parking the car, I wrap a scarf around my neck and pull my coat tighter around my body. I begin wandering around the grass market with the Edinburgh Castle towering above. The cobbled, winding streets are lined with a vast array of shops, from designer to vintage. I pick up a few things from various stores: soaps, perfumes, a pair of shoes, and an old necklace with a weathered lotus charm. I'm not sure why I bought the lotus necklace, knowing the sadness it'll undoubtedly bring when I look at it, but I just had to buy it regardless. I buy because I don't know what else to do. My gut is hollow, and I'm in a never-ending state of anxiety, so this is my attempt at distracting myself. It's not helping, though, so I find a pub to grab a drink, and when I walk into the Fiddler's Arms, I immediately make my way to the bar. The place is filled mostly with men, drinking lagers and whiskey. I spot an empty stool and take a seat. The bartender places a drink napkin in front of me, saying, "What can I get you?" Taking a quick look at the tap handles, I don't recognize the names, so I randomly pick one. "Staropramen." He gives me a nod, begins to fill the mug, and then sets it in front of me. I slip my coat off and hang it on the back of the stool, and then take a long, slow drink, in hopes that it dulls out the intensity that's inside of me. I lean forward and close my eyes, focusing on the noise around me, wanting to get lost in it, and when I open my eyes, I spot familiar ones staring back at me from the opposite side of the bar. A grin grows on Lachlan's face, and he nods to the empty seat next to me in a gesture to join, and I give him a small, inviting smile. "Fancy seeing you here," he says when he approaches and sits down. "Wanted to do a little shopping before I head back home," I lie, and my stomach knots at the pathetic deceit. "You heading back to the States?" "Yes, tomorrow." "Short trip," he remarks. "I suppose." He takes a sip of his whiskey and sets the tumbler down when he asks, "Any plans on returning?" "Doubtful," I reply, and take another drink. I turn to look at Lachlan watching me intently. He's a stately man in his trousers, button-down, and tailored sports coat. His hair is lightly gelled and styled to perfection with a dignified part. His eyes continue to linger on me with a soft expression. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I peacefully ask. He takes a moment and then responds, "You seem down." "Just worn out. I haven't been sleeping well." "You left abruptly the other evening after your run-in with Declan," he states. "Perhaps that has something to do with your lack of sleep?" "Nosy," I accuse with a playful smile. "Just observant." "Is that all?" "You want more?" He lightly chuckles. "You flirting with me?" "You're what?" 20-some-odd years younger than me." I nod. "A man like me would be foolish not to flirt with a woman such as you." "Such as me? And what's that? What am I?" He takes another sip of whiskey and then leans in a little closer to me, answering, "Exquisite, my dear." His flirting isn't meaningful, but more of humorous banter, so I know he doesn't think it rude of me when I begin to laugh. We both take another sip through our smiles, and he breaks his mock flirtation when he says, "Seriously, though, is everything okay? It looked like you and Declan were having a much too dire conversation for a party." "Just hashing out some unsettled business, that's all. Do you always make it a habit to stick your nose where it doesn't belong?" I tease. "Always," he boasts, and we both laugh again. "Well, at least you're honest about it." "Can I ask you something?" I nod. "What brought you here to Scotland?" I look up at his face, and I don't see any ulterior motives in our exchange, other than a man who genuinely wants an honest conversation, so I answer, "Him." "Him?" "I came to see Declan. I hadn't spoken to him since he left Chicago, and I guess I just wanted to see him." "Lovers?" "Again, nosy." He smirks at my jab. "Does he have many of those?" I ask. "Would you feel jealous if I told you yes?" Straightening my neck, I state, "I don't get jealous." "You're a wicked woman, Elizabeth." "What makes you say that?" "In my experience, women who don't get jealous do so because they'd rather get even," he says, and then winks. "Is that what you think of me? That I'm a woman of revenge?" I question in jest, but secretly I want to know how he truly perceives me. "You know what my mom always told me?" "What's that?" I laugh. "She told me that while the rest of the species are descended from apes, redheads are descended from cats." "So I'm a cat?" "A minx," he notes. I shake my head, saying, You neglected to answer my question.
You mean Declan?
Mm-hmm, I hum as I take another drink.
No.
No?
I've known Declan for a very long time. He will always have a woman on his arm at events, but it's all a show, strictly business. I've only known him to have a couple long-term relationships, but none he was too serious about. I think they were more of convenience than actual love. Declan's a well-guarded man.
Hearing this makes my guilt build heavier, knowing that what he gave me was most likely the first time he had given that to anyone. His love, his heart, his moments of sweet softness. Having this information makes the destruction feel even more malicious.
He's a shrewd man in business, Lachlan continues. I can only assume that filters into his personal relationships as well, but perhaps you might have better insight into my assumptions.
You want me to open up and divulge my personal knowledge of Declan?
Did he hurt you?
No, I state matter-of-factly, and when he gives me a sly look, I murmur in an honest moment, I hurt myself. I refuse to reveal that I also hurt him. I don't want to diminish anyone's perceptions of the powerful Andric man they all know him to be.
So you were lovers?
I hate that word.
Why?
Turning to face Lachlan, I lean to the side, resting my elbow on the bar top when I say, It's shallow. That word insinuates a base, sexual relationship rather than intimacy.
Has anyone ever told you you're gray?
You're wanting black and white? As if that even exists. There is no black and white, right or wrong, yes or no. His eyebrows raise in curiosity, and to lighten the now heavy mood, I tease, Oh, come on, Lachlan. Surely a man of your age has come to recognize the world for what it is.
A man of my age?
Yes, I respond, smiling, and then laugh as I add, Old.
Old? Didn't your mother ever tell you to respect your elders?
I never had a mother. I catch myself as the words fall so easily and without thinking. I immediately press my lips together and turn in my seat so I'm not directly facing him anymore. He doesn't make any comment, and the silence is unsettling as we sit here. When I do finally turn my head to look at him, there's a look of pity on his face. It irks me, but I remain polite because, let's face it, besides the elderly lady I'm staying with, this is the first real conversation I've had in a while. If you're feeling sorry for me, don't. He surprises me with his unguarded bluntness when he asks, What happened to her? You don't beat around the bush, do you?
What do I have to lose? You're leaving Scotland. We'll never see each other again.
Okay, then, I respond as I turn in my seat to face him dead on and take him up on his offer. What the hell do I care? He's right. After today, I'll never see him again. I don't know what happened to her. I have no memories of her, so I assume her to be dead. It was always just me and my father.
You never asked?
My father died before I could, I answer directly.
Have you tried finding her?
No.
Why?
What's the point? I say with a shrug of my shoulders.
Aren't you curious about where you come from? What if she's not dead like you assume? What if she's been looking for you?
And when he asks that last question, I start to wonder, hypothetically, if the woman did exist, she wouldn't have a chance finding me. I was a runaway, an invisible child, and then I was Nina Vanderwall. How would she have ever found me when I've made it impossible? All I have of my mom is an old photo of her. For a while I used to think about her a lot, wondering what she was like, if she was anything like me.
It's never too late, you know,
Lachlan says, and I let his words float in my head. I've lost everything, but what if I haven't? What if there's a chance that I have something left in this life? Is it worth trying to find? Is it worth believing in hope when that dream has failed me countless times? Can I take another disappointment? Questions. I have hundreds of them. Looking back to Lachlan, I want to protect myself, but I'm so lonely. Lonely and in need of comfort, in need of a reason to go on. Because, as I stand now, I'm beginning to seriously wonder why I'm still here, moving, breathing, living. Why do you care? I ask the man who shouldn't because I'm not worthy of it. There's something about you, he says with all seriousness. But you don't know anything about me. Doesn't mean that I don't want to, he admits before adding, all friendships have to start somewhere. Let me help you. But I've never had friends. I stuck to myself in school while everyone else picked on me. Pike was my only friend, not only from childhood but also as adults. And let's face it, the so-called friends I had when I married Bennett were just for show. So I accept his offer, and with reluctance about what I'm agreeing to, I give a small nod. Okay, then. Chapter 16. I've been packing ever since I got back from Edinburgh. Now that all my belongings are ready to go back to the States, I sit on the floor beside the bed I've been sleeping in for the past couple weeks since I arrived here at Isla's. My mind begins to drift back to the conversation I had with Lachlan earlier today. It was weird. A mention of my mother is something that never happens. It's part of my life that rarely creeps to the surface, but it's there now, and I'm not quite sure how it happened. There were times in my childhood when I would miss her, but what I was missing wasn't real. It was simply a creation of my imagination. I've never known what it was to have a mom. More than anything, it's always been my dad that I ache for and miss wholeheartedly. But when Lachlan offered to help find my mother, I agreed. I don't know why. My acceptance of his offer came without much thought at all. Maybe I'm just so lonely that I'm willing to grasp onto anything at the moment. Warmth slips down my neck, extinguishing my train of thought, and when I bring my hand to the front of me, it's bloody with dark flesh under my nails. It's then I realize I've been mindlessly picking at the scab that still remains from Declan. It's grown in size. I reach back and begin to dig my nail into the soft, gummy, exposed flesh, and a searing pain slices my scalp. And finally my mind is depleted of all thoughts, and I go numb. My eyes fall shut, and I drop my head forward, letting it hang. Fingers that work nimbly find an unpicked edge of a scab, and I grip it between my fingers. A moment passes before I swiftly yank, pulling the scab off, along with new, uninfected flesh, enlarging the wound even more. Exhaling a lungful of air, my core tingles in delighted release when I feel a new onslaught of warm, thick blood oozing down the delicate skin of my neck. Exultation is stolen in an instant when the door to my room opens, and I see Declan's horrified face. Am I dreaming? He's frozen for a moment before stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. I don't move as I look up, stunned. Christ, what happened? He gasps, but he isn't looking at me directly. I follow his focus as my eyes land on my crimson-soaked hand that rests on my lap. His legs disappear from my periphery while my vision blurs on my weapon, and then it's gone, covered in a warm, wet towel. Touch. Declan's hands work deftly as he dabs gently, cleaning the blood. Touch. My heart's beat reacts. Delicate pumps soothe my tormented chest into a lull of lucidity. Touch. No longer a hateful, punishing touch, just a touch. Lifting my eyes to his face that's pinched in puzzlement, he flips my hand palm up and then over again. Where's the blood coming from? I don't speak, and when he catches my eyes with his voice is fervent. Nina, where's the blood coming from? Don't call me that. Ache splinters when he calls me Nina, tightening my throat in a menagerie of emotions. A collision so unmanageable my body doesn't know how to react, so it remains numb and silent as Declan begins to move his hands over me, pulling up the sleeves to my sweater, trying to find the source of the blood. Lowering my head, I lose myself in skin-to-skin contact, and when his hand finds the back of my head, I go limp, falling into his lap. I lie on the floor like a baby, with my head on his knees, and silently blink out tears. I don't know if they're happy or sad tears. All I know is that they are tears that welcome my answered prayer of solace. His fingers are tender as they move to nurse me. I rest in a ball curled at his mercy. His pants dampen beneath my cheek, salting the wool fabric. If wishes were granted, this would be mine. I wanted to remain in his lap forever, to never lose that feeling because he was everything in that moment, gentle and loving. Lying there, I felt like a child, like a little girl being taken care of by her father. And although he wasn't my father, somehow he carried pieces of that man inside of him. It wasn't something he was even aware of, but I was. I saw it and felt it every time I was in the presence of Declan. He held it all, lover, protector, fighter. He was the ultimate fairy tale, and I would have done anything to make him my fairy tale.
"What have you done to yourself?"
His voice murmurs above me.
"Sit up."
He helps me from his lap, and we sit face to face when he instructs,
"Lift your arms."
And when I do, he slips the sweater off of me. Blood stains the back of the top, and he continues to clean me up before spotting my luggage and pulling out a clean shirt that he then puts on me. Letting go of a deep breath, he sits in front of me while I remain by the side of the bed. Some of my blood colors his knuckles as I watch him drag his hand back through his thick hair. I observe the details of his movements, the way his chest rises and falls with each deep breath he takes, the way a lock of his hair falls over his forehead in dishevelment, the lines of torment that crease his face, the dark lashes that outline and brighten his green eyes that are pinned to mine. With my trembling hand, I reach up and lightly touch his face with the tips of my fingers. He doesn't flinch or move when I do this, something I thought I'd never be able to do again. And then I mutter my first words on a hushed breath, drenched thick in heartbreak. "I thought you were dead." His throat flexes when he takes a hard swallow.
"I know you did,"
he responds, voice strained. "Your father," I start, struggling to keep my words alive. "He told me—"
"It was a lie."
"Why?"
"I didn't want you looking for me."
Truths are blades, but I deserve every cut that comes my way.
"Your head looks really bad,"
he notes.
Why? Why are you doing this to yourself?"
I reach back to touch his gift that burns in my flesh, and I'm embarrassed when I answer him with honesty because I refuse to hide myself from him any more. "I didn't want to let it go."
"It's grotesque, Nina."
"Please, don't call me that." He drops his head, saying,
"I want to hurt you."
"I know."
"My hands itch with the need to rip you apart. I crave it,"
he confesses, and then shifts his eyes back to mine. They're dark and bitter, dilated in vehemence. "I deserve it."
"You do,"
he agrees. Pulling my knees to my chest, I wrap my arms around them, hugging myself. "Why are you here?"
"I needed to know something."
His head drops again, and the utter agony in his voice when he continues wrecks me.
"The baby."
A broken whimper forces its way out of me.
"Was it even mine?"
The last thing I want to do is hurt Declan more than what I already have. I want to lie, tell him yes, tell him he was the only one I was sleeping with, convince him of my love. But I can't. I don't want to hurt him with the truth, but I also don't want to comfort him with lies.
"I need to know,"
he urges. His eyes shine bright with tears I know threaten him, and I, cowardly, shake my head. He takes a push back, widening the gap between us, and leans his head against the dresser.
"Why?"
"I wanted it to be," I tell him, as I begin to cry from what was stolen from me.
"So it was Bennett's baby?"
"I don't know." Confusion strikes his face.
"What does that mean?"
God, I hate this. Hate that I keep deepening the wound. Tears soak my cheeks as I stall.
"What do you mean you don't know?"
he presses. Because...
"Say it."
There was someone else." My words ignite a fire within him, His neck is tense, reddening in anger. With elbows on knees and white-knuckled fists clenching hair, I know he's about to blow. "It's not what you're thinking, Declan," I say in my attempt to explain the fucked-up relationship Pike and I had. "Besides me and Bennett, you were fucking someone else?" "Yes, but—" "Then it's exactly what I'm thinking," he seethes. "No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't—" God, how the hell do I begin to explain this? He was... This is going to sound crazy, I know, but it isn't. I fucking hate you. I love you. Not Bennett, not Pike. You. Wait. He pauses for a moment and then continues. That name. That guy. I went to see him. Found his name in the file your husband had on you. Yeah. This shit is so fucked up. I can't even get my thoughts straight. Pike's my brother, I reveal. What the hell is wrong with you? My foster brother, I clarify in a rush. He's my foster brother. The same guy that was beating you? I nod. Do you know how sick this is? How sick you are? Fucking 3 men? Wiping my eyes, I move to sit on my knees. I'm so sorry. I know it sounds messed up. Sounds? No, Nina, it is messed up. You need serious help, you know that? I don't bother correcting him when he calls me Nina. He stands up, looking down on me in fury. I can't believe I fell for something as disgusting as you. It wasn't like that, I say in a panic. I didn't like him like that. There were no feelings attached. It was the opposite of what you're thinking. I used him so I didn't have to feel. He was a vice. That's all sex was with him. A vice to numb me. Numb you from what, Nina? From life, I cry out. From everything. Everything. Even me. No, not you. Once I realized how I felt for you, I never touched him again. I couldn't, because your hands were the only ones I wanted to be touched by. But I was already pregnant. I just didn't know it. He paces the room, enraged. Declan, there's so much you don't know. So much I never told you because I couldn't. You could. You were just too selfish. Okay, yes, you're right. I was selfish. Selfish and scared. But you loved me, right? I don't know who the fuck you are. Tell me. Tell me who you are because I'm so goddamn confused right now. I don't know, I whimper, and then stand with him. You do know. I don't. I want to know. I'm trying. What does that even mean? I don't know. Pacing a couple more times in determined strides, he finally gives up and walks to the door. I can't do this shit anymore. And then he walks out, not even bothering to close the door behind him. Sobs explode out of me, loud and vulgar. I don't expect him to understand or to even want to. I'm sick, I know that. I knew I'd never have him again, but it doesn't make the pain any less awful when he walks away from me. Elizabeth! Isla calls out in urgency as she rushes into my room. I instantly catch myself, swallowing back my sobs and wiping my face. I'm fine. I'm so sorry for the disruption, I say thickly as I weakly feign composure. Stop that, she scolds as she takes my hand and walks me over to sit on the bed. Are you okay, lassie? I'm fine, really. And with the pitying look on her face, I know she isn't the slightest bit convinced. What was that McKinnon boy doing here? You never mentioned knowing him when we were discussing him the other morning. I'm sorry, Isla, I state calmly now that my breathing is steadying. Sorry? I do know Declan. I just didn't want anyone to know. Her thumb strokes the top of my hand, looking over me, and finally concludes, It was him. He's the love you lost. She doesn't question, only states what she's figured out. I nod and apologize once more for pretending to not know who he was the other day. I'm confused, though. I thought you told me he died? And now I must lie, because I can't possibly tell her the truth. I guess it was easier to pretend him dead. The thought of living in a world where he existed without me was much too painful. With a tilt of her head, her brows tug in sorrow for me. I'm sorry I lied to you. Shaking her head, she affirms, Don't be. You're heartbroken. It's understandable. But it's not excusable. It is, dear. We sit for a while as she continues to hold my hands before adding, He seemed quite angry. He is. But if it's all right with you, I'd rather not discuss it. Of course not, she responds. Is there anything I can do? Anything I can get you? Thank you, but I'm fine. Okay, then. Well, I'll leave you be. Good night. Good night, I say, as she walks out of the room and closes the door behind her. I remain on the bed, unmoving, and alone with my thoughts. Exhaustion presses down on me as I turn my head to the side and eye my luggage. Maybe I could stay a little longer. I know I shouldn't. I know I need to go and erase myself from Declan's life so he can move on and heal. It's a lost cause trying to explain all of this to him. But maybe it doesn't even matter, because in the end, he's right. I'm fucked up, and none of this makes any sense. Chapter 17. Declan. What are you doing here? I ask when I pull up beside Lachlan's car setting outside the gates to my house. Holding up a file, he calls out, Property closing. I need you to sign. Christ, all I want is to be alone with a bottle of Aberfeldy, to try my best to relax and calm the nerves that Nina has so intensely provoked. Lachlan pulls in behind me and follows me up to the house. I'm on edge, still unable to even think about what just happened and the things she told me. If I allow myself to go to that place in my head right now, I'll completely lose my shit. So when I get out of the car, I exert control and compose myself. You couldn't have emailed this to me, I complain as we walk inside. They won't accept an electronic signature. Flipping on the lights, I head back to the library to go over the final contract on the property in London I've been contending to acquire. You have any plans on selling this place? Lachlan asks, and when I take a seat on the couch, he sits opposite me in one of the chairs. Why? It's pretentious. Fucking dauber, I breathe under my breath. I heard that, you bastard. Good. I've known Lachlan since our college days. He was working on his PhD while I was working on my master's at St. Andrews. We were both part of the Oxfam Society and worked on many campaigns together. We've remained linked because of his relationship with my father. When Lachlan was my age, he worked in wealth management at one of the top firms in London, where my dad keeps his investments. Lachlan was his advisor for many years before he opted for a less demanding position and started advising small companies independently. While I was still living in Chicago, I knew I'd soon be back here. Since I was already involved with purchasing the property in London, my father put in a call, and now Lachlan works solely for me. He handles my business finances and also a children's education foundation I've had for many years now. Everything should be as we discussed with the bank, he tells me as I read through the document. Looks good. I sign the papers and slip them back in the file. Handing it over to Lachlan, I say, Life's about to get busy. Good thing? Very. After Chicago, I'm ready to dive into this project. You ever going to tell me what the hell happened? Standing up, I don't respond. Instead, I walk across the room to the liquor cart, pull the crystal stopper from the decanter, and begin pouring myself a glass of scotch. Declan? Drink? No, he responds. So tell me, what happened? Nothing to tell. I take a sip, relishing the 21-year-old single malt. I allow the smooth smoke of the scotch to settle on my tongue before swallowing. I appreciate its offering as it makes its way down, heat spreading through my chest. She leaves tomorrow, you know. And your point? The boyish, smug look on his face grates me, along with the way he relaxes himself into the chair. She's stunning.
Tossing back the glass of whiskey, my face pinching against the burn, I set the glass down, and the clank of crystal against glass reveals my frustration. Remind me again why I'm friends with you? Look, it's apparent there are hurt feelings between the two. I stop him mid-sentence, snapping, What are you, my fucking therapist? Don't pretend to have insight into something you clearly know nothing about. I spent the afternoon with her. She's easy to read. I laugh as I walk back over to the couch. That woman is anything but easy to read. Trust me. Don't let her fool you. And what the hell are you doing talking to her? I told you to watch her, not befriend her. The mere idea of Lachlan spending time with her and not knowing what's being said or what their interactions are like rubs a raw spot in me. To not know, and the fact that it bothers me so much, it's infuriating. It's the way she was able to claw her way inside of me and burrow into the one vacant spot no one has ever been able to find makes me hate her even more. She's a cherub of martyrdom, and I, her willing victim. Willing because, as much as I want to, I can't let the red-headed sadist go. I doubt I'll ever be able to because of the mark she's left on me. I'm the unhealed remnant left in her destructive wake. She wants me to find her mother, he eventually tells me, cutting the silence. My eyes dart to his. What? I offered. Why the fuck is she giving parts of her truth to him that she hasn't given me? Isn't that fantastic? My cynical words come out loudly. Do me a favor. Try obeying my orders next time. Follow her and cut the friendly shit. No need to follow. Like I said, she leaves tomorrow, he informs as he pushes himself off from the chair. Standing in front of me, he shrugs on his coat and grabs the file. I'll deliver the documents. Leaning forward, I prop my elbows on my knees as I listen to his loafers echo down the foyer. I want to know when you find her mother, I holler. Will do, he calls back before the sound of the door closing grants me much-needed isolation. Slumping down into the couch, I rest my head and stare up at the ceiling, replaying the evening. Everything about it is a Gordian knot, and not just the words that were spoken, but the wound I gave her that she's successfully mutilated. I remember ripping the hair from her scalp and the pleasure it gave me to punish her. But her reaction was not what I expected. She didn't as much as yelp at what must have been blisteringly painful. She simply stood there as tears dripped down her face, but she wasn't crying, not like you would think. But tonight, when I walked in on her and saw the blood, my only reaction was to help her. Taking care of her and cleaning her up makes me sick, now that I think about it, but in the moment all the turmoil faded. It was when she started to speak that it all came crashing back. It flooded the room, drowning me in its weight when she told me she didn't know if the baby was mine. That fucking baby. All I wanted was that baby. I never knew I wanted one so badly until she told me she was pregnant. Instantly, my soul split and begged to have a son or daughter fill me. I would close my eyes and dream about it. The news birthed a surge of overwhelming protectiveness inside of me, and I would have done anything for the two of them the moment she told me she lost the baby. And I did. It happened all too fast. Walking away from Nina as she fought the nurse's restraints, speeding through the traffic, grabbing my pistol from the car's console, the chill of the metal against my back as I tucked it in my pants, pulling into the Legacy's garage, back entrance, elevator, fury running thick through my veins. Doors open, I walk. Foyer, living room, hallway, door. Head and heart pound, ears ring, blood boils. One hand on gun, the other on door. Open, aim, bang. I can still smell the gunpowder, see the look of fear in Bennett's eyes, hear him gurgling and choking on his own blood. I killed a man, An innocent man, point blank. His last words, a plea for me not to do it, still haunt me. But I did it anyway, because I thought him to be the man Nina manipulated to me. I believed he killed my baby, and for that he would die. But it was a lie. I shake the visions from my head and walk over to pour myself another glass of scotch. It's my pathetic attempt to quiet the demons in me. The conundrum I battle with is the idea that Nina is the vile one, and that somehow I'm good. But I'm not. I'm a killer. She didn't pull that trigger. I did. I don't want to bathe in the same evil as she, but I do. It was her that screwed with my head, twisting truth with lies, creating me into this monster. But a monster I am, just as she and I allowed. Whether I intended to or not, I still allowed it. But it isn't just what I did. It's what she did, or didn't do, leaving me to die, not doing anything to help me. Yet tonight she vowed she loves me and wants to do everything to save me from the path she put me on. How could she say that when she left me with 2 bullets in my chest, bleeding out on the floor of my loft? Bullets fired by her brother. God, her brother. The brother she was fucking. All he had to say was go, and she went, never coming back for me. I've been lied to and manipulated by many, but her betrayal has debilitated me, ripped my heart out, riven to obliteration, raping the soul entirely. Who knew her hands could hold so much turpitude? Everything combined is impossible to digest. The contradictions she throws out do nothing but spare confusion and animosity. My mind craves clarity on the situation, but I doubt I'll ever get that because I doubt her sanity. Yet, the mere mention of her leaving tomorrow evokes a thrum in my chest, and that shit bedevils me the most. Chapter 18. I've been trying my best to play the part, cooperate with the authorities, and feign my innocence, but shit is looking bad. Cal's been sitting in jail, and it's only a matter of time before they come after me. I can trust that Cal is keeping a tight lip, otherwise I would have already been arrested. But he knows firsthand what can happen if his loyalty is compromised. Needless to say, with everything I stand to lose, if they uncovered my involvement in the gun trafficking and my other crimes, they'd fry me. I'm a dead man walking at this point, but I'm not a man who's going to sit back and watch his dynasty collapse. Pawns are beginning to fall, so I need to move fast. The private charter is set to leave at 3 a.m. Everyone has been paid off and given the rundown. They know I own their tongues. My new identity is packed in my briefcase. Bags are ready to go, and the car should be here shortly. With a stomach filled with boulders of anxiety, I walk through the dark house to my bedroom where my unknowing wife sleeps. Eeriness looms as I walk into the room. She lies there, peaceful, completely unaware of the world she walks around in daily, unaware about who I really am, what I really do. But if I'm going to do this, I need my family. There's no other option because they mean everything to me. So with that, I risk it all, because they're worth it, when I sit on the edge of the bed and gently nudge her awake. She stirs, and when she begins to open her eyes, I take her face in my hands and kiss her. There's no preparing for this life, the one I've chosen to live for nearly 30 years, but never in those 30 years have I been under surveillance like I am now. "What's wrong, honey?" she questions, pulling away from this uncharacteristic affection. Remaining as calm, clear, and concise as possible so that she doesn't freak out on me, I say, "I need you to sit up and listen to me very carefully." "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared. Everything is going to be okay, but I need you to listen closely because I don't have much time." She sits up and gives me a nod with fear-glazed eyes. I take her hands in mine. "I'm leaving the country," I start when she interrupts me. "What?" When I place my fingers over her mouth, I stress, I need you to not ask questions because I won't be able to answer them. I'm begging you to trust me and know that I will do everything to keep our family together. I love you. But there's a part of this business that isn't legal. I've done some things, and now I run the risk of losing my life. My words are partial truths, but mostly lies because there's no point in laying it all out there. It would only put her in danger. Her eyes widen and her face creases in confusion as she slowly shakes her head. This is what I need from you. I... Take a deep breath, hun, I gently instruct. You trust me? Her nod comes instantly, soothing some of my worry. Good. I need you to trust me. Never doubt me or my love, understand?
Of course.
If anyone asks about me, you tell them you don't know where I am. You haven't heard from me or seen me since we got into an argument over my commitment to this marriage. That if you had to guess, I'm simply hiding out in a hotel to avoid coming home.
Why would I?
Trust, I say, cutting her off. No questions, because the more you know, the harder it is for me to protect you.
Protection from what? From who?
Cupping her cheeks, I affirm, no one will ever separate us, hurt us, destroy us. I need you to just stay put and lay low. Don't talk to anyone unless you have to. But whatever you say, you do not know where I am.
When will you be back?
Leaning in to rest my forehead against hers, I whisper, I don't know. She then begins to quietly weep with her hands on my cheeks. You love me, right?
Yes,
she responds. I need you to know that when I come back, we won't be staying. We'll have to leave the country. It's not something that's negotiable.
What about our life? Our family and friends?
There won't be a life if we stay. Her body trembles while she clings to me, muffling her cries against my shoulder. I don't have much time, I tell her softly, trying not to upset her more.
What does that mean?
I'm leaving now, tonight. She pulls away, and with broken, tear-filled eyes, she tells me,
You have to give me something, some assurance that you're going to be okay, that you're going to come back.
There isn't anything I wouldn't do for our family. I will always protect what's mine. I will be back. And with that, she kisses me with urgency, pulling herself on top of my lap. She tastes like salt as she cries through her loving affection, gripping tightly onto me. I band my arms around her, reminding, I love this family more than life.
I'm so scared. I don't even know what to think right now,
she whimpers, and I wipe her tears. I know, hun, I know, and I'm sorry. I never wanted to drag you into this, but I have to go.
No, wait, she clips out. Maybe I can help you. If you just tell me whatever trouble you're in, maybe there's a way out. Something I can do to help.
I promise you. I've calculated everything. Remember what I told you. We argued, and I left. We have one last kiss when I get the call on the untraceable cell I purchased, letting me know the car is here. And then I'm gone as the car makes its way to the charter that will take me to Scotland undetected and off the grid.
Chapter 19. I'm a selfish woman for what I'm about to do, but I can't stop myself. All my luggage is packed in the trunk, but before driving to the airport, I need to say goodbye. I know my words hurt him last night when he came to see me. The more I spoke, the angrier he became and eventually stormed out. But I can't be left with that. I can't have that be our last interaction. I know I'm only thinking of myself right now, but I simply have to see him one last time. Pulling up to the gate, I push the call button.
Go home, Nina,
his voice says. Declan, please. I'm going home. I'm heading to the airport now. I just want to say goodbye. Can you please give me that?
There's no response, only silence. I wait, and when I'm about to shift to reverse, the gates begin to open.
Releasing a sigh of gratitude, I start the drive up the winding road. After I park the car, I take another long look at the house. I try not to think too much about the could-have-beens because they're just never-bees. I still find it odd that the shrubs that line the house are scarce in areas. Big, gaping holes when everything else is pristine, even under all the snow.
"It's freezing out here,"
Declan calls out to me from the front door where he stands. "The shrubs look sad," I tell him.
"The shrubs?"
"You're missing a lot of them. Did they die?"
"You could say that," he responds. "Can we get out of the cold?"
Giving him a weak smile, I walk over and enter his home. Declan closes the door and moves past me, and I follow, but today he leads us into the kitchen.
"I was just making some coffee,"
he says as he pulls the kettle off the stove.
"I think the old housekeeper left some tea in the pantry if you'd like a cup."
His politeness is unexpected, catching me off guard. Okay. Yeah, that would be nice," I say, stumbling nervously over my words. I walk around the large center island and take a seat on one of the bar stools. I watch him move about the kitchen, pouring the boiling water into the French press, and then the rest in a teacup for me. Looking around, I take in the surroundings. The kitchen is tucked away from the openness of the house. It's an eat-in kitchen with a large farm-style table that sits in front of 3 floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the beautiful grounds. The room is brightly lit from the snow outside, and the windows are slightly fogged over.
"Here you go,"
he says, and I quickly turn back around to the cup of tea he's set in front of me. I stare down, watching the ribbons of steam float up and disappear. I'm reminded of the many mornings I would sit at the bar in Declan's loft, sipping on tea while watching him cook breakfast. He always looked so sexy in his long pajama pants and white t-shirt that hugged his broad chest. I could watch this man infinitely and never tire. The memory of what used to be pangs in my chest as I sit here, and when I look up, I see him standing in front of me on the opposite side of the island. "Declan," I say in a faint whisper. I let his name linger in the air between us for a moment. "I'm so sorry." Setting his coffee down, he braces his hands on the granite countertop, letting his head drop. I give him silence, and let it grow as I keep my eyes pinned to the most amazing man I've ever known. His soul knows no boundaries of beauty. When he finally raises his head and looks at me, I tell him, if I could go back, I'd do it all differently.
"You can't go back, Nina, and what's done is done."
"I know," I admit with defeat.
"I wish I could go back too, but you can't turn your back on the choices you willingly make, and in that moment, I chose you."
"Do you regret that?" I ask on words that ache. Before he can answer, his cell phone rings, distracting him from me.
"I have to take this,"
he says, and I nod as he steps out of the room to answer the call. I swallow hard past the emotion lodged in my throat. Leaving the tea, I go stand in front of the windows. The chill from the glass makes me shiver as I watch the snow drifting down weightlessly to the ground. Looking over to the left, I can get just a hint of a glimpse of the grotto, and decide to get a better look from another window in the house. Slipping off my coat, I lay it over one of the kitchen chairs and make my way out into the main hall of the house. I can hear Declan's voice coming from the library. I wander down the grand hall toward the glass atrium when I pass a set of stairs. With curiosity, I begin to climb the steps that lead up to the second floor. With my hand still on the banister, I look up to see the stairs continue up to a third floor. I explore, opening doors and walking down the various corridors that lead to bedrooms, bathrooms, and sitting areas. Everything on this level has been remodeled and finished in grays and stark whites. I then see a massive set of white double doors with intricate carvings in the painted wood. The handles are like ice in my hand when I open the doors to what I discover is Declan's room. My loss is overwhelming as I look at the large bed that sits in the center of the room. I'll never know the feeling of being wrapped up in those sheets. Declan's right. You can't turn your back on the choices you make, and sadly, I made all the wrong ones and lost him in the process. I take a step into what feels like forbidden territory and look around the room. Its many windows brighten the space that's painted in a hue of dark gray, and the fluffy white down that lies atop the large black leather Chesterfield sleigh bed. There's a sitting area off to the side with 2 black armchairs and a chaise, all leather Chesterfield as well. Mindlessly, I walk across the plush carpet and over to the bed. I allow my fingertips to ghost along the white fabric as I mourn the loss of what was once within my reach.
"What are you doing in here?"
His words are clipped and irritated. I look at him over my shoulder before I turn to face him. My mouth opens to speak, but I can't find my words.
"You shouldn't be in here,"
he tells me.
Just what?"
he questions as he starts to slowly make his way over to me in purposeful strides. I don't know. I just needed to see this. Your home, this bed, you.
"Me?"
Yes, Declan, you, I say. I miss you.
"You don't miss me."
Every day. I do. I miss you every single day. His jaw ticks, and with darkening eyes he says,
"You miss what I no longer am."
Don't say that.
"Why? Too much responsibility for you to bear? You want to ignore the fact that your lies altered my life in the most unforgivable way?"
His voice grows coarser with each word spoken.
"You want to stand there and be forgiven for what you did, like you're some sort of victim in this?"
I don't expect forgiveness.
More lies.
He grits through clenched teeth as his hands fist at his sides. No.
Then why do you keep saying you're sorry over and over again?
He grabs a hold of my shoulders and my voice stutters. I don't know, but I don't expect for you to forgive me for what I've done.
Then why say it?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe hope.
Hope? For what, Nina? For me? For us?
Maybe. I tremble as my emotions grow with his anger.
You want hope where hope doesn't exist.
Fighting against the sadness is doomed when my chin begins to quiver as I say, I'll always hope for you.
After all this, you want me?
I nod.
Then tell me,
he demands with intent. My words come easily. I want you, Declan. His hands drop from my shoulders and land on his belt. With punishing black eyes boring down on me, I hear the light clinking of metal as he undoes the buckle. My pulse explodes in a rush of hammering beats that knock hard against my ribs in anticipation. But at the same time, my panicked heart flutters when he yanks the belt out from the loops of his slacks. I stand here unmoving and simply watch him. He takes the back of his hand and runs it down my cheek to my neck and then my shoulder. In a flash-quick move, he jerks me around, crossing his forearm over my chest and pinning my back to his front. My hands grip the sides of his thighs, balancing myself on shaky legs.
Tell me to stop. Tell me to take my hands off you,
he says with his lips pressed to the shell of my ear. No. Fast hands yank my arms behind me, and he binds the belt above my elbows. His restraint is unrelenting, pinching my shoulder blades together. I gasp at the sting of the leather biting into my flesh, and then yelp out when my feet are suddenly kicked out from under me and I fall hard on my knees. But before I can cry out against the burning pain that's radiating up my thighs, Declan grabs my hair and shoves my head face down into the bed, making it hard to breathe. You've heard of the theory of atonement, right? Making a restitution to mend what's been broken. I was willing to be whatever vessel Declan needed me to be so that he could deal with his pain. This was my punishment, my meager attempt to right the wrongs, but what came next would test my limits of love for him. How far would I let his destruction go? At what point would I draw the line? Did I even have limits when it came to Declan? It was in that moment, bound and on my knees, that I would soon find out. Gasping for air, I scream out when he twists my hair in his hand, ripping open the scab on my scalp. My body tenses as he violently grunts with each movement. He's so different from all the other times in the past. I sense it all around me, the putrid hate. He lifts off of me and shoves my pants and panties down to my knees, and my heart freezes in terror when he spreads my ass cheeks open and spits on me. Oh, God, no. His hand grips my shoulder for leverage, and every muscle inside of me constricts when he brutally forces his cock in my ass, ripping me in the most grotesque way. I shriek in sheer agony, my cries bouncing off the walls as he growls with each abusive thrust. I do everything I can to wrench my body away and fight him, but he's taken away my strength and power. I'm at his mercy, and he's a dark rage of unholy wrath as he takes the one part of me I never wanted to give. Gone is Declan's control, the awareness of how far he's pushing me. My screams are muffled when he lays a fierce hand on the back of my head, shoving my face back down into the mattress. I wail and gasp, thrashing my body against his merciless pounding. The next thing I know, he shoves his hand into my mouth, all 4 fingers, prying my jaw open and pulling against my cheek. The fire that sears my flesh and the corner of my mouth is ruthless. It's his way of shutting me up, because every attempt I make to scream or cry results in gagging on my own saliva. Stop. God, please, no. Stop. With my head turned to the side, drool running out of my mouth and down my cheek, I dart my eyes to look up at Declan, and what I see scares the shit out of me. He's completely depraved, a wild beast attacking me, and the pain multiplies as he shreds me. My body ricochets back and forth as he continues to pound into me. Each thrust is painful, unwanted, and takes me right back to the basement I spent so many years in being raped and molested. My mind can't even process what's happening as a blanket of darkness consumes me. I close my eyes, praying for this to end, and the next thing I know, I'm taken back to the only other time this has happened. I'm 12 years old, bleeding for the first time, and Carl's pissed because Pike can't get hard to fuck me in the ass. I'm naked, and Carl has my face shoved down on the cold concrete floor. His grunting fills the basement as he rapes me from behind. Blood rolls off my back from the lashings he gave me with his belt. His fat belly slaps against my hips as he rips me open, splitting the flesh. My screams go unanswered. My body begins to heave and convulse when I come into the present. No longer is Carl raping me, but Declan. The voices in my head are screaming for him to stop as he continues to sodomize me, but it's all I have since he has my jaw wrested open, gagging me, and making it impossible for me to fight back.
Shut it off, Elizabeth.
My eyes pop open when I hear Pike, and he's here. Tears fall when I look into his consoling eyes. He's right here with me, on his knees beside me. He runs his fingers through my ratty hair and attempts to soothe me.
Just look at me, okay? I'm here with you. You're not alone, but I need you to turn off your feelings right now.
I fight to relax my body while Pike continues to talk to me and stroke my hair, and soon enough, in a matter of seconds, my muscles slacken and my breathing slows. My eyes are locked to my savior.
That's it. No one can hurt you if you can't feel, he reminds me. I'm here with you, Elizabeth. Just keep your eyes on me. It'll be over soon.
I nod at his words and trust in them. I keep my focus and never let my eyes stray from his as Declan forces his domination on me. In mere moments, he flexes above me, filling me with his cum. His body hunches over mine as he groans out in pleasure. Or is it anger? Then I notice his hand is no longer shoved in my mouth, but instead holding my hand. Why is he doing this? My head fills with a haze of swirling thoughts and memories that are unrecognizable. I'm dizzy in the wake of what just happened as my head lies in a puddle of saliva, tears, and snot. The mixture, the evidence of my fight, coats the side of my face and cakes in my hair. "You're okay," Pike assures me, and then he's gone. I don't even get a chance to grieve his loss when Declan pulls his cock out of my ass. I wince against the pain when he does this, but I'm frozen, bent over his bed, unable to move from the shock. I can feel the delicate tissues swell in a blistering heat of rawness. "Jesus Christ," I hear him pant from behind me, and he quickly releases his belt from my arms. I remain in place as I listen to his footsteps, followed by the click of the door closing, and it's then I finally take in a breath of air. My body slides off the bed and onto the floor where I lie with my pants and underwear still shoved down around my knees. Destroyed. Humiliated. And in a sick way, loved. Chapter 20. Chills rack my clammy body as I lie here on the floor of Declan's room. The room that was supposed to be ours, housing our bond and love for one another. It was never supposed to be this, but it is. My thoughts are scattered and confused. What just happened? My body trembles in the aftershocks of the trauma it just endured and the memories of my childhood. I fight the vomit that sours the back of my throat as my gut bubbles in disgust. But you want to know the most fucked up thought running through my head right now? Here it is. I still ache for him, for his love, his touch, his breath upon my skin. And then I think about him holding my hand. He held my hand. It's nothing new for him. He's always held my hand when we orgasmed. It's his one tender gesture that would remind me that no matter how rough he chose to be with me, that I could trust in his comfort to always be aware of me and take care of me. Does he still feel that way? Bracing my hands on the floor, I push myself up to sit, and my ass stings as I shift. Biting against the pain that shoots through me, I stumble up to my feet. I reach down and pull my pants up. Wobbly on my feet, I walk over to the ensuite bathroom, and when I flick on the light, I get a glimpse of my ashen face. I touch my reflection in the mirror. Somehow it feels safer than to touch my actual face. There's always a disconnect in one's reflection, and right now I need that distance. But the reflection I see is me at age 12. I look at me, at her, and my heart begins to pump harder, fiercer, sadder. Her blue eyes are filled with a pain she hides from the world, and I want so badly to reach through the glass and save her from the life I know she'll endure. I know that deep down she's buried a small light of hope, and it kills me to know it's just a wasted dream. This sweet little red-headed girl is destined for a life filled with anguish and despair, and there's nothing I can do to save her. Her future is inevitable, written in the stars, and bound to the solidity that the fairy tales she dreams about don't exist. They never did. Tucking my fingers in a tight fist, I feel the tingles in my palm. Everything clouds around my head in a swarm of shit memories and thoughts. I'm stronger than this. Don't break. I'm stronger than this pain. But maybe I'm not strong. I just allowed Declan to fuck me the same way Carl did, and I barely even fought him. I succumbed to him like the trash I am, gave him a piece of my worthless body for his selfish use. Smash! 100 eyes stare back at me, sad, pitiful, loathing eyes. My eyes. The clinking of broken glass falling onto the marbled sink is a song of despair, but it's ruined with my panted breaths. I look into the broken mirror and I hate what I see. I hate what I am. I hate it all. And I want to hate Declan for what he just did, but I can't. I can't, and I hate myself even more for that fact. I deserved it. I deserve even worse. If this is his way of punishing me, then I'll suppress the need to fight him. I'll bear it and take it without enmity. Concentrating on calming myself down, I turn on the faucet and cup my hands under the cold water. My knuckles sing as the water flushes the split skin. Water takes my blood and runs red down the drain. I allow the coolness to numb the wound. After taking a few sips from my hands and rinsing my mouth out, I start opening the drawers and cabinets to find a couple bandages to cover my knuckles. Once I have the band-aids in place, I undo my pants to clean up. Flinching when I wipe myself, I look to see the toilet paper streaked in blood from his assault. I splash a little water on my face and finger comb my hair before I open the door and take slow steps through the bedroom. I'm timid and nervous about walking out of this room, about facing Declan, about what will happen next. Walking down the stairs, I don't see him, so I make my way to the kitchen where I left my coat and the keys to the car. I stop when I see Declan leaning over the counter. I don't move. I don't make a sound. His back faces me as he's bent over, leaning on his elbows with head in hands. The rise and fall of his shoulders is noticeable as he stands there, slightly disheveled in his tailored slacks and untucked button-up. When he senses my presence, he shifts his head to look at me, and I notice his reddened eyes. The shame is written all over him, staining him in humiliation. But I'm the only one who should feel it, not him. He pushes back from the counter and stands up, facing me, and when I take a slow step into the kitchen, I'm overwhelmed with the need to give him honest pieces of me, to open up with truths he's never heard before, to finally let him inside of me. Being with you has been difficult, I admit, my words trembling. It takes me to the extremely dark place of my past.
Then why me? Why not choose someone else?
Because, I choke out as the tears flood my eyes. Because you always held my hand, I weep. For some reason, that simple touch made it okay, made me feel safe. I've never had that touch before. He doesn't respond to my words as he looks at me with tormented eyes. So I stand here in front of him and tell him the truth as I continue to cry through the shame of who I really am. On my 10th birthday, my foster dad forced my brother to molest me while he watched and jerked off. Admitting my disgust for the first time in my life suddenly makes it all too real. Tears fall from my cheeks as I bear my disgrace in front of my love. I was only a kid. I didn't even know what sex was until I was lying underneath Pike on a filthy mattress in the basement.
Christ,
he breathes in horror at my words. After that day, I found myself in that basement nearly every day for years. I couldn't believe in heaven or God when I was being forced to do things people want to pretend don't exist. But what happened to me made me believe in evil, and that the devil is real and lives inside the savages of this world. Declan turns away from me, resting his hands back on the counter and dropping his head, his breath heavy as I add, "My foster dad. He had a thing for belts as well. He got off on stripping me naked and whipping me until I bled." His fists ball tightly at my words. "You used to frighten me when you'd use your belt on me. All I could think about were all the beatings I was forced to endure as a little girl."
Stop.
"This is the truth," I sob. "This is what I never wanted you to know about me. I'm ugly and nasty and dirty and—"
"Stop!"
he shouts at me. I watch the muscles that rope his arms flex with tension. His eyes are pinched shut, and I startle when he slams his one fist into the solid granite with a guttural outburst. I'm paralyzed, scared to move, completely exposed and mortified. Never have I opened myself up like this. I never had to with Pike because he was there, a witness, a participant. With his eyes still closed, he says in acrimony,
"Do you have any idea what it's like to love the person you hate?"
Love? God, he can hate me all he wants if he still loves me. Opening his eyes, he takes a couple steps toward me.
Because I do hate you, more than anything on this earth. I hate you with every pump of blood my heart proffers. I want to punish you in the worst ways, make you suffer and hurt. But God help me, I love you.
It's what I've been longing to hear, to know he loves me, but his words are filled with lachrymosity. Whatever may come of us, this love he has for me will always be tinged in venom. But even in the lies of before, it was corrupt, cursed from the very beginning, and I was the culprit.
But then, he starts, you tell me these truths, the truths I wanted from the beginning that you hid from me, and I feel like a bastard for wanting to hurt you. But I still want it. I still want to make you suffer.
I deserve it, I murmur.
Why did you continue to do it?
Do what? He struggles for a moment when he clarifies.
Why did you continue to have sex with your brother as an adult?
Embarrassment heats my neck, and I feel so filthy having to expose this. Hanging my head in shame, I keep my eyes downcast as I answer. At some point, when we were kids, we started sleeping together in private, in his bed. It wasn't forced, and in those moments he'd make me feel okay.
Okay?
He questions in confusion, and when I hesitantly move my eyes to look up at him, I say, I always felt gross and worthless, but something about Pike made me feel clean. He made me feel loved and safe. He was all I had in the world. I begin to choke on my words, telling him, and he did love me. He always protected me.
He raped you?
Declan spits through gritted teeth. No, I defend. He didn't. He was being molested himself long before. Carl, our foster dad, he forced Pike to do that stuff to me.
He didn't have to do it. He made the choice.
He knew if it wasn't him that Carl would do it himself. I was safer with Pike.
But Carl, did he?
I nod. Yes, it took a while, but eventually he did. And then I admit, the first time was when I was 12. He raped me the same way you just did. Instantly, Declan has his arms around me, and I'm crying. He grips the back of my head and cradles me tightly against his chest. His hold is strong and hard, but warm. I band my arms around his waist, clinging to him. He's everywhere, all around me, encasing me in the safety of his touch. Home. When I begin to settle my emotions and calm myself, he whispers in my hair, I'm sorry. I lost control on you. It's okay.
No, it's not okay,
he declares when he pulls away to look at me. It is. I hurt you. I'm so sorry, Declan. You will never know how sorry I am for what I did to you. I deserve every punishment.
I don't want to be that man.
You're not. You're nothing like that man, I tell him. There were times my mind went to that place with you, but you're not like that. I've always felt safe with you. I've always been certain that you'd never really hurt me.
But I do hurt you, and I like it, and I want more of it.
Then take it. I'll give it to you. I'll give you anything to make you feel better. If it's my pain and suffering you need, then have it. It's yours. His hands tighten on me as I speak, and with brows knit together and a locked jaw, he grunts in frustration when he releases me from his hold. Raking a hand through his hair, he growls,
What the fuck is wrong with you? You shouldn't want this. You shouldn't want me. What right-minded person would subject themselves to this?
I never claimed to be right-minded. I know I'm screwed up. I know I'm so far beyond damaged I'm irreparable. But I also know that you won't find the same amount of satisfaction in punishing anyone but me.
Why do it then? Is it to make yourself feel better for what you did?
Partly.
And the other part?
Taking a few steps over to him, I say, Because I love you.
You shouldn't.
But I do. I never thought anyone could have the power to make me feel as safe and clean as you do. You have the power to make me feel worthy of living. that somewhere out there, life just might have a purpose for me.
Then why leave me? Why didn't you stay and call the medics? Why did you leave me to die?
It's in his words I hear the heartbreak I caused. I told you I was scared. Everything was happening so fast I didn't know what to do. I panicked. He releases a slow sigh and takes a moment before speaking again.
I'm sure I already know, but I need to hear it from you.
What is it?
I know Pike is dead, and I know he died the same day he shot me.
I swallow hard when he says this, and I already know his question before he asks.
Did you have anything to do with his death?
My chin begins to quiver, and when I can't hold on to my emotions any longer, my face scrunches as I confess, I will never forgive myself for what I did. I loved him so much.
I need to hear you say it,
he says sternly. Fighting back my tears, I take in a deep breath and let go of it slowly before giving him the trembling words. I'm the one who shot him. I killed him.
I want to be mad at you. I want to throw it in your face, but that would make me a hypocrite, and it's because of your lies.
I'm sorry.
Stop apologizing, his voice rips when anger takes over. I don't want to hear anything else from you. Every time we talk, the shit you say, it's impossible to understand and digest.
He walks back to the center island, facing away from me as he looks out the windows.
Get out, he orders on a dead breath.
He's unmoving as I walk around him to pick up my coat and keys, but the struggle is evident within him. I want to say 1,000 words, but I know better, so I keep my mouth shut and do as I'm told. I leave. Chapter 21. What are you doing back here, lassie? Isla questions when I walk through the front door with my luggage. I missed my flight. Is it all right if I stay another night?
Stay as long as you like,
she says when she walks over and takes one of my bags.
Were you able to reschedule?
Not yet. I never even made it to the airport. I'll have to call the airline tomorrow.
Does this have anything to do with the McKinnon boy? She asks.
Walking into the formal sitting room, I take a seat, answering, Yes.
Heartache is difficult.
Looking over at her sitting across from me, I give a slight nod. The day has been draining, and I feel weak from what happened with Declan. With so many questions swarming in my head, I say, Can I ask you something? As I lean back in the chair.
Of course.
Do you believe that people can change? She takes a moment and then gently shakes her head a couple times.
No, dear.
I reflect on her answer as defeat looms overhead. And then she elaborates.
I believe we are who we are, and the essence of what we are built upon is unchangeable. But I believe we can change how we make choices. But just because we can change our behavior doesn't mean we've changed the core of who we are. It's like someone who's an alcoholic. They may rehab and make better choices, but I don't believe that inner voice and craving ever goes away. The change is solely in their choice to not drink, but they still desire it. So evil is always evil? Yes, and good is always good. But I trust in my faith that we are descendants of rectitude, that each of us, no matter how bad we may think ourselves to be, the core lining of us is threaded in holy fibers. It's in her words that I'm taken back to my home in Northbrook. The memories of my father and I play in clips of tea parties, nighttime songs, piggyback rides, bedtime stories, and fits of laughter. And Isla is right. There was a moment in time I was clothed in nothing but goodness. I was pure and free and honest, but I was just 5 years old when my light was snuffed out. The day my dad was taken from me was the day nothing would ever be the same. I lost more than just my light. I lost myself, lost it entirely. I allowed the world to decay me. But how is anyone supposed to be strong enough to fight back against something so monumental? I was just a little girl. The only person I had in my corner was Pike, but then again he was just a boy himself.
We clung to each other because we were each other's only hope. I thought I was making all the right choices, but as I look back in the wake of my life, it's filled with nothing but destruction. And now I'm the only one that remains. Well, almost. Declan is still here, but in a sense he was destroyed as well. His heart still beats, but not like it used to. My choices, my decisions, they're poisonous. I used that poison for power, but it backfired. "Are you okay?" Isla's voice interjects. "I made bad choices," I say without thought. The words simply fall from my lips before I can stop them. "Welcome to life, my dear," she condoles. "I could write a novel with all the mistakes and ill choices I've made in my years. But I've come to realize that's what it's about. Sometimes we have to fall to know how to stand back up. Sometimes we have to hurt people to recognize our flaws and to see that we need to better ourselves." "Did you ever find that some of your choices were so bad they were unforgivable?" I ask as regret stirs in my veins. "Yes," she admits with her chin held high. "But even though I knew they were unforgivable, I was still forgiven." "Who was it that forgave?" She pauses, and when the corners of her mouth lift in a subtle smile, she answers, "My husband." "You hurt him?" "I hurt him terribly." "Why did he forgive you?" I ask. "It's called grace. When we love, and when that love comes from the purity of your heart, you give grace. You find compassion and forgive because we're all flawed. We all make mistakes, but love's devotion doesn't cast stones." I want to believe the love Declan once had for me did come from a pure place, that there's still hope for forgiveness, that there's still a shimmer inside of him that still wants me, because for me it's more than a shimmer, it's a raging fire of need and desire I have for him. But after what he did to me today, I don't see this working out. Isla's words are nice and flowery, but flowers eventually wilt and die no matter how much love you give in tending to their needs. "You look like you could use a distraction," she says before suggesting, "Why don't you settle back into your room, and when you're ready, how would you like to help me prepare dinner?" "That actually sounds lovely, but unfortunately I can't cook." "Everyone can cook. All you need is someone to guide you." Smiling at her invitation, I accept her offer and agree, "Okay then, but I'm warning you now, I've been known to incinerate food beyond consumption." I laugh at the memory of the first time Declan tried teaching me to make champagne chicken and I charred the meal. But that laughter is tainted. It's bittersweet. My time with Declan back in Chicago held some of the best moments in my life, even though I was just an illusion of a better version of me. "If I could teach my daughter how to cook, I can surely teach you," she tells me as we stand. Picking up my bags, I look over and tease, "But is her cooking any good?" "She always made the best meals." "Made?" I question her use of the past tense. "She left this world many years ago." "How did she die?" I question, knowing all too well the annoyance of the overused "I'm sorry" people give who clearly haven't suffered a death filled with "I'm sorries." "It was a senseless act of violence, but that's part of life, dear," she says, attempting to downsize the ache, but her loss is seen in the gloss of the unshed tears of her eyes. "I'll be in the kitchen," she says, and then walks out of the room. Death is imminent. I know this all too well, but no matter how much we lose, no matter how numb we become, we always feel the pinprick of the vacancy. The parts of our soul that our loved ones take with them when they leave this world are forever left unfilled. They are empty wounds that are always exposed and unable to heal. As I make my way up to my room, I settle my things in and decide to keep myself busy to block out the thoughts that keep filtering in. Memories of this morning's defilement, the vision of Declan when I looked at him, his villainous eyes, blackened in rage, keeps finding its way into my head. He was a riled beast, taking what he wanted, forcing his power on me. Shaking the visions away, I quickly rush out of the room to find Isla for the much-needed diversion. We spend the rest of the day in the kitchen, and I find myself enjoying my time with her. We cook, share a bottle of wine, and enjoy each other's company, and I'm thankful for the distraction she's able to provide me. But it's when I excuse myself for the evening and am lying in bed that it all immediately comes rushing back. Declan tying me up, spitting on my ass, smothering my face into the mattress, the pain of his intrusions, the sounds of his wild grunting. I shift in bed, heart pounding, and I feel the burn from his assault. And then it's Carl I see in the darkened room. I can smell the stench of his cigarettes. Lurching off the bed, I dash to the toilet and vomit. My stomach convulses and heaves as the acidic bile stings my throat, and when I gag, it fills my nose and burns like a bitch. My eyes prick hard with tears, and another bout of puke forces its way out of my gut as my body constricts and hurls over the toilet. When there's nothing left for my body to expel, I tire and scoot my back against the wall. I wipe the sheen of sweat from my forehead and take in slow breaths. My hands are jittery, and my body is broken in a spell of cold sweats. Even if I wanted to shut myself down, I don't think I'd be able to. I don't think I'm strong enough to battle the skeletons I've spent my whole life hiding from. The skeletons that Declan awoke when he forced himself on me earlier today. Only one other person has made me feel that decrepit and filthy, and I burned him to his death. Never did I think Declan would haunt me the same way Carl used to. Warmth stirs me awake, and as I begin to move, I feel a weight on top of me. Opening my eyes, my body jumps when I see Declan holding himself above me. "Shh, baby, it's only me," he whispers. "What are you doing here?" His eyes pinch shut, and he lets go of a pained breath, saying, "I can't do it. I can't stay away from you." His words settle my heart, and I don't question him because I need him. Reaching up, I run my hand along his stubbled jaw, and when he drops his head, my body warms in peace as his lips press softly into mine. I cannot control the moan that comes out of me, and I wrap my arms tightly around his neck, holding him close. To have his taste back in my mouth soothes. The world lifts from my shoulders, and finally I can breathe, really breathe. I don't ever want this to end. I need this, need him. As our bodies begin to move and writhe together, he reaches back and pulls his shirt off. Lowering himself on top of me, he threads his fingers through my hair, saying, "Forgive me for what I did to you earlier. Please forgive me and let me fix it. Let me attempt to take it away." I place my hand over his bare chest, and I can feel his heart crashing inside of him. I want to calm that heart just as much as he wants to erase what happened in his room, so I nod my head. That's all it takes for him to start slowly undressing me. Slipping my clothes off, along with his, he covers us up under the sheet as our naked bodies rediscover one another. He allows my hands freedom to roam over his body, an un-Declan-like thing for him to grant me, but I take it. He runs his damp lips down my neck and along my collarbone before taking his tongue and dragging it over my pert nipple. Covering the tight bud with his lips, he sucks with the heat of his mouth, and my body bows in response to the touch. My hands fist his hair, and he moves to my other breast. His cock is raging hard against me, and his slow movements are making my pussy ache in wetness for him. "I need you, Declan," I pant in wanton heat. He pulls back and looks down at me with eyes molten in lust. His hand ghosts down my body, my stomach, and when he reaches my pussy, he sighs as my muscles tremble in anticipation of what I thought I'd never have again. "Oh, God," I mewl when he delves his fingers into my wet folds. My hands press into his flesh, and I hang on as he begins to pump in and out of me. I'm on fire, needing more of him, so with a strong hand I wrap it around his wrist and hold his arm still. When I begin to rock my hips and fuck his fingers to my own liking, he growls, and the erotic sound spurs my hips to buck up and fuck him even more fiercely. "That's my baby," he encourages, and when my moans intensify as my body climbs, he pulls his fingers out of me and quickly pins my arms above my head. I'm relaxed under his restraining hold. Looking up at him, this is the Declan I remember. He's in total control, dominating me with loving affection. With his hand locking my wrists above me, he takes his other hand, fingers glistening in my arousal, and slips them into my mouth. I roll my tongue and suck the taste of my pussy off of him. He then finds my clit with his wet fingers and gently strokes on the bundle at the same time he pushes his large, strong cock inside of me slowly, so slow it borders on torture. I feel every ridge of his dick until he's buried himself deep in me. And I'm finally home, safe in the comfort of the only man I ever want to share this with. He holds himself still inside of me when he says, "You're the only one who's ever made me feel like this." "Like what?" Pulling out of me, he thrusts back in, grunting, "Like this," as he fills me deeply. My body arches off the bed as he elicits carnal moans from deep in my womb, and I spread my thighs even wider for him because I need more. Dragging his cock out of me again, he slams his hips down into me, while asking, "You feel that?" hitting my sweet spot deep inside. "Yes," I breathe. "Tell me," he demands as he drives himself back inside of my body, now pumping in and out with purpose, mending us together. My eyes fall shut as I let him take me over, giving him my body entirely for him to have and use however he wishes. "I love you," I release in the breaths of air we now share. "Tell me again." My skin tingles in radiant pleasure, warmed in passion. "I love you, Declan." I begin to lose myself, bucking my hips to meet each of his thrusts. I can feel his cock growing thicker, harder, hotter. His hold on my wrists tightens, but it only makes me feel safer. "Open your eyes," I hear him say, and the moment before I do, I smell it. Stale cigarettes and piss. My body locks up when my eyes open and it's Carl looking down at me, fucking me with his disgusting dick and breathing his putrid breath all over me. Jolting awake, my eyes pop open to be greeted by another snow-filled night. Another bad dream possesses my subconscious. This is the third nightmare I've woken from tonight. Gone are the nights of exploring with Carnegie, my caterpillar friend. He's been replaced by morphed scenes of Declan loving me and by dank basements, urine-stenched closets, and the visions of Carl jerking himself off as he watches me. I take my time to quiet my rapid beating heart before I lie back down. I focus on the snow that collects on the window. Some of it melts, turning into trickling rivers that slowly make their way down the glass. I burrow down into the blankets, trying to warm myself, and when I roll over from the moonlit snow, it takes a moment for my eyes to adjust. It's after I blink a few times that I see him, and I hold my breath, wondering if I'm imagining this. Imagining him. Chapter 22. He sits on the chair a few feet from the bed I'm lying in, leaning over with his elbows propped on his knees. I know he's really here when he lifts his head and looks at me, the moon illuminating his green eyes. My head remains resting on the pillow and I breathe in deeply. Why is he here? Neither one of us moves or speaks. We simply watch each other in the dark silence. I want to move, though. My body begs to crawl onto his lap, to have him dominate every one of my senses. The dream I just woke from felt so real. It's all I want, to be in a place where we can have moments like that together. But the dream turned to a nightmare so quickly, and I know it's because of Declan that it did. How can I crave this man who now torments me? What is it about him that makes me want to forgive him so easily, to not even question him? I notice the creases that line his forehead and his brows that cinch in the despair we both feel. What are we doing? His voice, a quiet rasp filled with oppression. Sitting up, I never take my eyes off of him, but I don't know what to say. I wish I had an answer for him, but I'm just as confused. He has my emotions bouncing all over the place and colliding in a war inside of me. I lose the contact when he drops his head down into the palms of his hands, and his voice is a soft murmur.
What have I done?